Hello, friends. How's it going? So, I just did a very silly thing. I didn't realize that I wasn't recording. I just took a picture of myself sitting here with the microphone, and I drew some cards from my Moonology deck. It's really pretty. And then I was talking, and then it just closed out of the picture, and then I went back and made it a video. I'm like, oh, okay. So, but anyway, I haven't been making any videos because I've been sick, and I wanted to sound at least less sick. Anyway, I did draw some cards. And the first one that I drew is A Time for Healing. And I will read, because there is a little book, I will read what that means. Oh my goodness. I wish I could have shown it, but I just opened the book to this. So apparently it's very important to read. Pulling this card suggests that the past is in the past and a bright future is beckoning. However, before you take your next step, make sure that both you and the situation feel healed. This is not the time to paper over cracks or to simply pretend that everything is okay. Rather, you still need a little more time to heal and to soothe both yourself and anyone else in need. Then remind yourself that anything is possible if you believe it. This is also a time to surrender and wait to hear guidance from the universe. Powerful insights can be had if you know that someone or something really isn't good for you. This card is a reminder to surrender. Start to work on your belief in your dreams so you're ready when the time comes. And it says, attune to the moon. When one is healed, all are healed. And then there are additional meanings. One of them is, it's time to let go of the past. Another, you are about to turn the corner. Another, you need more time to heal. Also, last but not least, think about how this situation would look if everyone were healed. I like that. Anyway, the teaching. Patience is required at the time of the balsamic moon. It's a time for self-care as you slowly but surely prepare yourself for the new moon, which is just around the corner. No matter which point in the current moon cycle you have pulled this card, it's a reminder to go a little bit easy on yourself. The time to step into your creatrix power will come soon enough. Give yourself the time you need. I like that. So, I'm going to put this one away since we read it. And I have 3 others that I will be doing over the course of however long, we'll see. But anyway. Okay. The Beautiful Land. All right. Chapter 9. There are 3 pancakes left. Samira managed to finish off 2 plates, while Talk bulldozed through a shocking 6.5 all by himself. Minutes ago, the waitress came by to pick up the empties, refill the water, and wipe down the table. Doing, Samira thinks, a really half-assed job of it. and all that remains is a single white plate with 3 cold flapjacks in a little pile. Samira can't imagine trying to eat them. She can't even imagine expending the effort it would take to lift her fork and drag the plate over. She and Tak have been eating in silence for the last 30 minutes. Tak's statement that he fucked everything up completely shattered his good mood, and Samira decided to wait it out instead of asking questions. She feels this to be a pretty remarkable display of restraint, because when it comes to questions, there are hundreds of them flying around her head. What do you mean they are bringing it here? Why did you make me eat all these pancakes? What's happening 6 hours from now? Why am I going to die? Who did you work for? What's in the briefcase? Why do you need me? Is this really happening? I mean, really, because it all sounds impossible if you ask me. But rather than bother her friend, she waited, and now he finally seems to be coming out of his mini depression. Smiling at her from across the table, the same dopey grin that made her high school life bearable, he runs a hand across his face and exhales loudly. I guess I should finish talking, huh? He says. Guess so, she responds. Okay. He begins leaning back in the booth. You should understand this about the Axon Corporation. It's pretty small. Just a dozen guys, all of who are incredibly rich and powerful. They handle the funding, talk to government officials, make bribes, stuff like that. All the science, all the technical stuff is handled by a dude named Charles Yates. He's a physicist. He's nearly 80 years old, and he's fucking brilliant. He's the one who built the machine in the first place, and he's the one who realized that time travel isn't a one-way street. That if you could send someone to a random timeline, you could also bring a random timeline here and use it to overwrite our own. Is that why you're scared? Asks Samira. Because you think he's going to overwrite the world in 6 hours? Yeah, it is. Although now we're down to 5. Tak checks his watch and opens his eyes wide. Shit, 4! I better hurry this up. So in the new timeline, the Axon Corporation functions as a one world government. They have all the money, all the armies, all of it. And these 12 dudes are in charge. Hold on, says Samira, holding a hand to her forehead. This is so weird, Tak. So this is about to happen? You're saying that 4 hours from now, everyone's going to wake up and the U.S. government is going to be gone? That we'll all be slaves for some huge corporation? Basically, yeah. I don't get how that would work. I mean, people would revolt. They wouldn't just throw up their hands and say, oh well, I guess I'm a slave now. Tak shakes his head. When you overwrite a timeline, you change everything. It's like all the previous stuff never existed. People aren't going to remember they used to live in a different world. That might be nice, says Samira. There's a lot of my life I'd like to forget. Yeah, well, that's too bad, because you're going to remember everything. Why? Because when Yates turns on the machine, we're not going to be here. You and I are going to a random timeline until all of this is over. Samira reaches down to crack her knuckles, then realizes they are covered in gauze. Her head begins to ache. As her breathing quickens, she suddenly locks onto a dirty smudge on the window. Grabbing a napkin and dipping it in water, she reaches over and begins scrubbing with short, quick strokes. Sam? Says Talk slowly. What are you doing? We can't use the machine, Talk, she says, ignoring his question. You said it's in Australia. We can't get there in 4 hours, and besides... She trails off, her attention now completely gripped by the window. As Talk watches in silence, she scrubs with mad abandon until the napkin dissolves into a tangled mass of thin, wet strands that leaves the window dirtier than before. Frustrated, Samira grabs a fork off the table and shoves it underneath her bandage. She rips through the first 3 layers, then quickly unravels it from her hand until she has a makeshift rag. Carefully turning the bloody sections inside out, she folds the bandage into a square, dips it in the pitcher of water, and attacks the window with renewed fury. Talk slowly reaches across the table and touches her on the shoulder. She shrugs his hand away and keeps scrubbing, causing the scabs on her knuckles to burst open and begin licking red. Upon seeing this, Talk grabs her shoulder again and shakes it. Sam! Sam! Sam, stop it! No, I have to... Sam, knock it off. Stop it now. He reaches over and yanks the bandage from her hand. She screams and tries to grab it back, but he grips her wrist and refuses to let go. She looks at him, panting, eyes wide, and waits for her breathing to slow. Then she wrestles free and collapses as far back into the bench as she can go, cradling her wounded hand in the folds of her dress. The waitress briefly emerges from the back to see what the commotion was, then decides better about interfering and disappears again. Sorry, whispers Samira. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. Keep going. Sam, what the hell I'm fine. Fine. Just keep talking, I'll be okay. You finish your story, then maybe I'll tell you mine. Tuck doesn't seem to care for this arrangement, but rather than push the point, he leans to his side and taps the top of the briefcase. This is a portable machine. Yates invented it. It doesn't work quite the same way. You can only use it to visit timelines you know about, not find new ones, but it'll be good enough. We'll use it to leave the solid timeline, then come back once the change is complete. What if I don't want to go? Whispers Samira. I know it's scary, he begins, but I promise it's gonna be... No! She screams the word, the loudest sound she's made in months. No talk. Look, I think you're crazy, and I'm not convinced any of this is really going to happen. But if it does, if you're right and it does, then I think that's okay. Sam, wait, you don't... I hate it here, she says. She can feel tears again, hot and angry. But rather than being ashamed, she welcomes them. I hate it. I can't talk to people. I can't sleep. I can't do anything anymore. Tuck's mouth is hanging open. This was clearly not a reaction that he had planned on. And really... thinks Samira. She reaches for a napkin to wrap around her bleeding hand. How could he? How could he know what it's like? He's been messing around with time in Australia while I've watched soldiers shoot families at military checkpoints. I have dreams, she continues, Every time I go to sleep, which isn't often anymore, I have these terrible dreams. There's one where I'm lying on the ground and a tree starts growing out of my mouth, and it splits the side of my mouth open and my face just rips off. I have that one a lot. And then there's one where these little kids are chasing me around the streets of some desert town, and when the dream starts, it's like we're playing tag or something. But when they get closer, I see the kids are actually made of worms. Just these little worms that are wiggling around when they catch me. And when they catch me, they hold me down and the worms fall off their faces and crawl onto me. They leave these perfect little round holes all over my body. Samira can't look up. She knows that Talk is staring at her, but she doesn't want to meet his gaze. She hasn't told anyone about the extent of her issues. Not Dr. Carrington, not her fellow GIs, not anyone. And now they're flooding out of her in a rush. She feels incapable of stopping. I can't get clean anymore. I see dirt and I go crazy. I see a smudge on a window and it starts to hurt unless I wipe it off. Noises keep me awake. Anything but constant, steady noise prevents me from even thinking about sleep. Then I get tired. Then I get angry and all the pain comes back all at once. I'm broken, Talk, and it's way, way worse than you know. So if we're going to go to a new timeline where I won't remember my old life, then I'm seriously going to be okay with that. Talk leans over for her hand, but this time she refuses to give it. Instead, she sniffles and wipes her nose on her arm. Sorry. She chuckles. That's kind of gross. I'm sorry, he says softly. Sam, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Yeah, I know. But listen, you have to come with me. Talk, I don't think you have to. Why? Because you're not in the other timeline. Because she begins. Wait, what do you mean? You're dead, he says in a trembling voice. All right, in the other timeline, the one that's coming here, you're dead. You got blown up by a roadside bomb and you've been dead for 2 years. And when the machine cycles up, it's gonna overwrite whatever isn't supposed to be there. And that means you're gonna die. I don't care, Samira says, unsure if she believes the words or not. She folds her legs under her, pops off a shoe, and starts cracking her toes with her good hand. Once she finishes a pass, she finally manages to look at her friend, only to find him staring back with sunken, haunted eyes. You hate this life, Samira, says Talk. So do I. You've done things you wish you could take back. So have I. Working for these men, using the machine like some kind of fucked up science project, helping them. Samira starts to speak, but Talk waves her off. You want to know the worst part about the machine? When it finds a random timeline, it creates a kind of door we use to move from one reality to the other. But the doors are inherently unstable, and for the first year or so, we weren't able to keep them open. Every time I came back from a timeline, the door would close, and we could never go back. But then Yates figured out a way to store the doors, to hold them open so we could revisit random timelines whenever we wanted. And you know how he does it? He does it with people, Sam. Fucking people. So if you go into that building in Australia, there's this room the size of a football field filled with people. They're all on stretchers and they're fed through tubes. And they just lie there in a coma so we can use their brains to hold the doorways open. Hundreds of people, Sam. They kidnapped and imprisoned hundreds of people, and I knew about it, and I just... Talk balls his hand into a fist and raises it over his head, as if he wants to slam it into the table. Instead, he just waves it angrily in the air a couple of times before dropping it to his side in a gesture of surrender. I kept going, he concludes. I put it out of my mind and I kept going. This is almost too much for Samira to take in, so rather than think about it, she lets her mind go blank as Talk picks up a fork and she finally manages to say, "Why are you telling me this?" "I can't stop what's coming," he says as the fork slips off and clatters to the table. "But I think I can make it right." "How?" "There's a woman named Judith Halford who works with Yates. Before this whole thing started, she made a secret copy of the solid timeline, a fail-safe in case something went wrong. If I can find the fail-safe and get it to the machine, I think I can undo all of this." Samira lowers her hand, picks up a napkin, and begins to tear it into small pieces. She's never felt more overwhelmed in her life. She doesn't know whether to embrace Talk and tell him everything is okay, going to be okay, or bolt from her seat and run screaming into the night. "I need you," he continues. "I need you with me. I've probably caused hundreds of people to die, and I can't be responsible for you. I just can't. So come with me. Help me right now. We're two people who've done some terrible things, but this is our chance to make it right." She lets his words hang, then slowly stands and walks out of the diner without a sound. The cold night air hits her in a rush, but she doesn't mind. Pulling her dress tightly around her, she walks past rows of idled semi-trucks until she reaches the edge of the highway. Across the road, tall pine trees with snow on their branches sway in the breeze. She listens for the sound of an approaching car, that satisfying, predictable roar, but finds only the random chatter of a cold Nebraska night. A few minutes later, she hears Talk crunch his way through the snow and take up a position a few steps to her left. 2 years ago, I found a timeline where snow is different colors, he says quietly. Over there, you can see different spectrums of light, and the snow absorbs it somehow. Blue and green and red all sparkling in the air. People live in these little huts, and every time the snow starts glowing... And every time it snows, the kids gather it up in glass jars and shake them until the snow starts glowing. Then they run around in big dumb circles, giggling and holding up the jars to create these miniature fireworks shows. It's the most wonderful thing I've ever seen. He places a tentative hand on Samira's shoulder. We can do a good thing here. We can make amends, and when we're done, I'll take you to that timeline and you can see that brilliant snow and watch those kids. And I swear you'll never have a terrible dream again. She kicks at a small tuft of white snow and sends it flying into the wind. Her mind is a blur of dreams and guilt and terrible thoughts. But incredibly, there is also a small flicker of hope. She'd almost forgotten what such a thing felt like. I still don't believe you, she says quietly. That's okay, responds Talk. You will. Ta-da! Okay. There you go. I love this book. I remember loving it when I read it the first time. And, it's very fucked up. It's really good, though. I really like fucked up things, so there's that. Anyway. I do hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day. I'm recording this on a Monday, but I don't know what day it is. I'm going to actually edit it and everything. We'll see. Anyway, I love every one of you. Bye.